18 rings, 6 coins to my name, but with 18 rings then I can change the game. Flip them over, turn them around. Oh shit, look, I turned them into a crown. Make it dance, make it work for you. Coin is for the spending, if you scatter it then you'll reap the profits of the seeds you've sown. What do you know, look, I turned it into a throne. We do what we do to keep the water flowing. The more you give, the more it keeps growing. I don't want your gifts, I don't want your charity. I just want to see some other love and prosperity. The wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning round. If the water won't flow, then the crops don't grow, so the wheel keeps turning round. The wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning round. If the water won't flow, then the crops don't grow, so the wheel keeps turning round. I make my living by the sweat of my brow, the strength of my voice and my lyrical know-how. I work hard, I spend freely. I'm not rich, but damn, am I dearly pleased to think of virtue and preach it to the masses. The fruits of my labor I use to fill glasses. Life is for the living is the message I'm selling. The scent of success is the aroma you're smelling. The wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning round. If the water won't flow, then the crops don't grow, so the wheel keeps...
Yeah, we're here. Hello everybody. Welcome to this chat. We have, I was prepared and then I had to rush because things broke around the house. So, yeah, so a little bit rushed, but never mind. We are here. We're going to have a nice chilled chat and go from there and just see how the mood takes us all. So, oh my god, a celebrity. There you go, Tom. Sorry, husband Fussy. Alex, Mark, Beth, Al, Panda, everybody. So I'll give everyone their proper name apart from Panda, because that is her proper name. But yes, welcome. So Debbie Harry as well. So tonight is this is literally me trying something new because it occurred to me that tabletop is very much a lead-in to LARP. And hi Dolly, sexy boy. So it occurred to me that I shouldn't just be talking about LARP because there are a lot of gateway drugs out there for LARP itself. So it makes sense to spread out and have a chat with people who know more about tabletop and stuff, who play a lot of it. And I tend to have been fairly blinkered when it came to tabletop because I played, it was just like vampire and werewolf for me for a long time, and then I've now picked up D&D like weeks ago. That's how recent it is for me. So we're gonna look at just sort of have a chat about tabletop games and what people get out of it and see the connections. And guten Tag, Pete. How you doing? I hope you're good. Morning all. Yeah. So so we've got the wonderful. So for those who have been around for a while with the streams and stuff, you'll recognise Tom. Tom has always come through for musically, comedically as well when it comes to a lot of stuff. So we have the little clap gif as well that came from Tom. So Beardly, yes, as well, very much so. Zidor, however, thank you for subbing. Welcome to the channel. I believe you followed today as well. So welcome and thank you. I hope you're not one of the Crimson Reaper lot, but I believe you are. So so this is where we are. There's no real news. I need to update my makeover thing because it's just not updated. No. Excellent stuff. Okay. You are welcome here then. I don't think Bolam's in chat, so he can't heckle. Um, so yeah, I need to update that because we've had a donation, and I need to put some other bits onto it as well that people have gifted and stuff. So hopefully we can get all 5 people made over at E1, which will be wonderful. Yeah, that's me done, I think. Tom, how are you doing? Welcome to the stream.
I'm very well, thank you for inviting me and having me.
Anytime, happy to. Always happy to chat. So, uh, so tabletop games. When did it all start for you? When did you start with that, with the gateway drug?
When did I start with the cannabis to LARP's crack?
Mm,
So, like it's always in general sort of just been interested in role playing games and other bits and pieces from computer
yeah.
games and from Diablo and Baldur's Gate and all that sort of stuff from action RPGs to more complex ones. I played a lot of Warhammer back in the day, but my first foray into proper RPGs other than Warhammer Quest was at University of Birmingham LARP Society, not LARP Society, Tabletop Society, which
Okay.
was 2005.
Oh
In
wow.
2004, when I played my first games, in 2005 when I first started running them.
Oh wow. That long ago. So what was your first? So was it with your first tabletop game then? What was it?
So the first grown-up tabletop game I played was 3.5 D&D.
Oh
It
right.
was
Okay.
a one-shot after the meeting of the Science Fiction Society, and it was in those years when I'm not sure if Return of the King had come out or was soon to come out,
I think it was
but
soon to come out.
yeah, it was in those halcyon years
Mm.
when role playing was starting to really sort of wind up into being something really big and zeitgeisty and sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact the Lord of the Rings movies were such a stunning success, sort of very clearly indicated that the nerds had won the culture war. Um, everyone's carrying a computer now. People used to get beaten up for liking maths. Yeah. But yeah, so it was D&D 3.5 to start off with, but in the uni society, like every term there'd be different games. Like no game would really last longer than or by design no game lasted longer than a term. So like
Mm.
in one term, like there'd be something on Wednesday, there'd be something on Sunday, and then whatever people ran after lectures or when they were supposed to be going to lectures for some of the aficionados.
Mm.
Some people role played their degrees away. But yeah, sort of playing Call of Cthulhu,
Ah.
various iterations of 3.5, so like the Eberron setting and other bits and pieces in homebrew.
Mm.
And then the first game I ran was at the start of my second year in uni, and it was All Flesh Must Be Eaten, which has got a load of really sort of macabre and ghoulish looking
Yeah.
elements.
Oh, where do I know? I know that one.
It's
I've pl-
based on
I have played that one. I have played that before.
it's
Yes.
it's a good, simple, modular, modern system. Like you're
Mm.
not looking at tables, you can bodge shit together, all sorts of other bits and pieces that you want.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like certainly, like at the time, your alternatives for running something modern were like either D20 modern, bleh, or Unknown Armies, which was like great in terms of the more mature approach it had to sort of madness and stress and
Mm.
mental illness in games than say Call of Cthulhu had at the time, where it's if you lose all your sanity points, roll on this table and see what paraphilia you get.
Yeah.
But equally, like I very much enjoyed the time I spent playing Call of Cthulhu. So yeah, just sort of being thrown in and playing loads and loads of different systems and sort of little dips and sort of these sort of like 8 to 10 week campaigns of a game in a regular slot every week. So I guess one of the things that the Role Playing Society did was it meant that everyone had the same amount of time free on a Wednesday and a Sunday as a base. So it knocked out that sort of that probably that biggest obstacle to playing tabletop, which is scheduling.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very much knocked that on the head.
Yeah. So I remember. Yeah. I mean, going back to that sort of time, I think. I mean, for me, it was like 1995, something like around that sort of time. My cousin came over to my grandparents, and he brought Mage the Ascension with him, and I made a character for that, and I hated it. Immediate disgust. I hated it so much. And then he said, "Oh, I've got
Kit for the Kit God.
Thank you, Hunt, and thank you, Alex, for the 300 bits as well. Thank you." Um, yeah, then he brought out Vampire the Masquerade for me, and oh my god, I fell in love immediate. I ignored all the. I mean, at the time, you're thinking. I remember reading up on all the lore and getting some of the extra books and thinking, going, "Oh, this is really odd. Why am I interested in this sort of aspect of the world?" It's like, oh, okay, well, it's just there. And then you get older, and I remember going back to reading the original books and thinking, so he was a white supremacist then, was he? It's like, that's not good. That's not good. But then it's all sort of changed now and everything. But that was that was what sort of started it for me. But I fell more in love with the lore behind the game, so not the dice rolls and all of that sort of stuff. I was more interested in the world that they created, especially the world of darkness. So yeah, the vampire side of it, and then I discovered werewolf, and I fell in love with werewolf as well, and all of that. So I like the stories behind the NPCs, the tribes, the clans, the governments that they make up, and all of that sort of stuff. And that's what made tabletop for me anyway. So I'd play games with people, and it would be, we're going to do this, this, and this, and I then would say that they'd bring up some lore, or they'd ask a question, and it's like I would just know it. I was so sad. It was so sad, but love it. I've still got so many of the books. I've got the novel. Yeah, so much of it all. So with Call of Cthulhu. I mean, D&D. I found there isn't so much lore with it because there is so much homebrew and there are so many different things to it. So I think that's why I've never really got my my teeth stuck into it, as it were. So what is it about tabletop games for you?
I mean, it really varies from game to game. Like some games are really some systems are very crunchy and mechanically satisfying, and you can go, oh, I've built a smashing character here, and there's some enjoyment in, like, you can talk to a certain sort of set of mates about, like, oh, this is an amazing build that I did, or this book's come out and there's this and that in it. It's something I've moved away a bit from as I've left university and been more in the world of work and been a busier person. I haven't had time to keep up with such things. But then other systems are very, very free form, but have got like really cool lore in them. Have got stuff that's exciting and evocative, and that gives you as a player or a DM a lot to work with, a lot to talk to, like other player characters with, and other bits and pieces. I GM, like, throughout my tabletop role playing career, I have GM'd considerably more than I played. I had a wonderful year after university where I basically didn't do anything before I got a proper job, and at that point I was GMing 5 games a week, including 2 on a Wednesday.
Oh,
Just had the appetite for it,
yeah.
and some of them would be like much more meticulously planned and set pieces in crunchy systems like D&D. And one of them was the Unknown Armies game, which started after the Guild of Students would kick us out. So it started around midnight at someone's house, and we'd regularly be playing until like 4 or 5 in the morning. And that was some bizarre fantasia of the it was very sandboxy, but it was modern world, and the premise was that the players were all present when just an angel fell out of heaven, and they all got bits of his powers, and then the apocalypse happened, and they tried to navigate that with each of a little broken bit of stuff, and they went to hell, and they went to heaven, and they met God, and then the campaign ended. I was like, Yep, that's done. That seems like a good place to end.
That's good. It's yeah, that's I'm the forever DM myself. I love telling stories. I love stories. It's something I've always said on stream. I love to hear people's stories, and being a DM, getting to create that sort of environment to watch and actually watch the players make their own stories as they go along, even if it is the most ridiculous things you have ever seen. But I remember, 'cause I like to go for the more weird sort of characters and things like that. That always makes me laugh. So when I played All Flesh Must Be Eaten, it was for a good friend of mine, Emma. She plays Empire actually. She was the accessibility people. Um, so she ran that for us, and we played through. Essentially, it was Resident Evil. So going into the hive and all of that sort of stuff, and I got to play I was a Russian heavy weapons expert, and everyone had to have a nickname, so a call sign that they used for themselves, and I called myself Cold War because I'm imaginative. So, but that was a lot of fun, and that was my first tabletop game away from World of Darkness, and that was that was an experience, and that was a really fun game to play. And then moving off into like Call of Cthulhu, I played Call of Cthulhu for the first time actually on stream with Patrick, who ran it as well. So the Alex has come up with a question, and Helen has given a question as well. So Alex's question is for me, so I'll deal with this one, and then Helen's one's directed at you. So, considering you've made your disdain for magic and role playing well known, why do you think Vampire the Masquerade pulls you in any way? I like social political. It's very very good because mine was for both of you. Oh right, okay. Um, so it's a very social political game, but it's also the disciplines, the powers that the vampires use. It's considered bad form or rude to use them to get what you want, because otherwise you're just constantly dominating people and to do what you want, and it's just this is boring and stuff like that. Uh, so yeah, that's what did it for me anyway. So it's a very, and the lore behind it all as well. So the stories of where all the clans came from, I absolutely love it. I could talk about it for days. Jazz says, I've played lots of games but not been a GM yet, and I'm very tempted. Scheduling people is a pain, so probably won't happen. Jazz, if you ever want to run a tabletop game on Discord, I will play. I will play. Just let me know when, and I'll be there. So Helen asked, I'll scroll back up to it. Any niche tabletop games you'd recommend?
So niche tabletop games. If you mean systems,
Hmm.
I played a system called Wushu, which was basically it was a pamphlet game before pamphlet games were cool and popular at conventions,
Hmm.
and it was very very like entirely based on descriptions. Um, I think the first All Flesh was my first campaign, I should say. But the first actual role playing game I ever tried my hand at running was in Wushu, and it was a weird like Wushu was mainly designed to run role playing games in the Matrix back when the Matrix was cool. Um, but it's super super descriptive. It's super super simple. As long as you tune it right, like the dice rolls don't rule a lot of stuff, but it's a great way of like breaking less descriptive players out of their shells. Um, like it favors sort of collaborative sort of work in a scene.
Hmm.
Um, like the action is the action and success is dependent on like the sort of the description, the evocativeness of the description you can put out of what your character does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd heartily recommend Wushu. I don't know other than All Flesh whether any of the ones that I've played extensively have been sort of particularly niche. I'd say.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I think I'd recommend Seventh Sea. I mean, it's not particularly niche, but it's a very unique tabletop game. So for the swashbuckling pirates, it's very Errol Flynn in the way it comes across. So the more flamboyant and out there you can be with what you're wanting to do, the better the reward. So it encourages people to I'm going to jump from this window onto the chandelier, swing all the way across, and then leap onto the stairs. It's like, yeah, it encourages that sort of behavior in the game, and it's very, very fun. I do enjoy running that game. Um, so want to have a look at Seventh Sea, as I think it had a new edition a couple of years ago. Yeah, I haven't seen the new one. I play the old one because it's fun. We also have a copy of Blue Rose, which Dawn would like to try sometime.
Yeah, that's based off the same system that they made the Dragon Age RPG in.
Hmm.
But like that's got like what makes Blue Rose stand out is the genre in that it's an approach at sort of your classic 80s and 90s and sort of like romantic fantasy, but not like sort of romance novel fantasy, but it's
No.
a style of fantasy um, sort of championed and embodied by a bunch of female authors. Name some of those authors, darling.
I would say sort of the 80s and 90s. Tanya Huff is the first one I can think of off the top of my head.
Ursula Le Guin.
Um, Not necessarily. I don't think she really wrote into that genre, but Tanya Huff is a good one.
Tanya Huff. If you like Tanya Huff, Blue Rose might be the style of fantasy for you.
Mm.
It's
Kirsten Britton.
maybe Kirsten Britton, my wife opines. Yes, it's more about collaborativeness and the same sort of
Yeah.
those themes that you'd find, and the system supports it well. Like I
Okay.
think to segue onto making a point, perhaps, is like of the role playing games or the role playing systems that are portraying a genre that
Yeah.
aren't a framework like D&D is. Although D&D, I suppose, is its own genre. It's that adventuring party swords and sorcery thing.
Yeah.
But of the ones portraying a genre, the best of them have got mechanics that support like that style of play. So, like taking Call of Cthulhu as an example, like your investigators, it's not your investigators are rubbish at everything. Like, you know, your investigator might only have a 50% chance of succeeding. But the fact that it's down on your character sheet as 50% makes you feel worried that you're not going to succeed. In a way that hitting armor class 20 with a plus 10 bonus, or armor class 21 with a plus 10 bonus, you feel like, yeah, I could do that most of the time. Yeah, I'll fight someone in plate armor with my level 3 character or whatever. Whereas actually it's the same number, but the way they frame it in Cthulhu makes you seem small and at risk, and it helps the atmosphere of it. And the same thing with All Flesh Must Be Eaten.
Mm.
The fact that it's designed to run one shots. It's designed to run sort of your Resident Evil type scenario. As an aside, I very much hope that Cold War burned to death. Did that happen, or was it acid?
Not
You're
sure.
Russian.
Did that?
How did he die, Steve?
He got eaten. Yeah, he got eaten. It was. I took the psychopath floor, and as we were, I remember it because as we were leaving and everyone's going up the ramp, I was at the front, and someone one of the other people just ran past me because they were faster, and as they got past me, I shot them and I killed them, and everyone else, they shot me in the leg, and so it was like, yeah, he's gone down, and they kept on running, and the zombies stopped as they were feasting on me, and it was great. It was a really, really good game, because normally, like, when a character dies, you go, oh, that sucks. But in that one, I was very much, this guy's a twat. He deserves to get eaten. He really, really does.
Yeah, man, dying in a one shot is cool. And like to segue back onto the point I was going for, like the with All Flesh Must Be Eaten, it's got that fatigue mechanic, and it's got like it's a modern system, and it's freeform isn't quite the word, but sort of you build you build your merits and your flaws, and you pick your skills. It's a classless system.
Yes.
But there's no safety net mechanic unless you buy the luck merit, which a lot of people don't see when they leaf through the book. Unless you buy that, like, you have no way to modify your rolls other than where the dice fall, which is designed for a zombie movie. Sometimes you're fighting one zombie and you just stuff it and it bites you, and that character is gone. It adds very much to the tension of it, to the thing that they're trying to portray.
Yeah.
I think that's the hallmark of a system, certainly of any decent genre system.
Very much, yeah, very, very much so. We just had there's an interesting message that's just been put into. Catch you later, Dolly. If you're streaming, have a good stream. So Zydor says, I'm new and from Sweden. I started watching your YouTube 3 days ago. I've been role-playing since 1994. I've been doing LARP since 2000, mostly Vampire the Masquerade, and then long or small fantasy LARPs. I saw your video on Death and Bleed, and you got me thinking about starting LARPing again. I played a clan Tremere for 13 years. I died 10 years ago, and I still haven't even thought about LARPing since I saw your videos. I've been feeling so bad ever since that happened. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole going on to Bleed and stuff. You made me think about starting LARP again. Even got out my sewing machine and started making a pair of trousers, pair of pants. That's awesome. That's fantastic. I'm glad that you're cracking it out and doing all of that stuff again. We've got a few people that come over from Sweden to Empire, funnily enough. So I did an international LARP video with a lad called Joel, and he lives in I've forgotten, but somewhere in Sweden, so in the south of Sweden. So yeah, I mean, if you ever thought about coming over to Empire, I'm sure that would be something that we could help with at some point. We're all about helping people here. So, but no, it's so good that you've been looking at getting into it again, and use the death of your Tremere as a sort of like something to aim towards for your new character. That's the best thing to do. So, because I lost Mac, who I played for pretty much all the time at Empire, and broke me, and I'm now a new character, so I'm getting my teeth stuck into him. So it's the motivation as well. But death sucks in all of these sorts of things. It really is a crap thing to go through. So so back to the tabletops and that. I love those sorts of games that are more freeform rather than you've got to pick one from these 3, one from these 4, and one from these 5, and it's just like, yeah, this is great, but I want something that's all the way, it's so far over that way you can't see it. I want to make that sort of character. So that was a nice system to make a character with, because it was very freeform and it was very open, classless. It was great. Really, really good.
You want to play a wizard that can swim?
Yes, exactly it. Exactly. D&D though, unfortunately, I got the books for Lily for Christmas, and I got her another book for her birthday to try, because she was interested. She was reading up on werewolf, funnily enough, and I just thought D&D might be a little bit more friendly for her eyes, because werewolf is quite a harsh, it's quite a harsh system, and you don't play to win at Werewolf the Apocalypse. You play to survive for as long as you can, and then you die. It's that sort of system. So, but I found looking at D&D very I don't know.
There's a bit of a hump to get over, and I say that as a Pathfinder player, as a Pathfinder version 1. I guess that's what it's called.
Okay.
First edition, that's it. Played that at length. I mean, speaking of werewolf and its bleak outlook, I mean, Lily's not that much younger than Greta Thunberg.
This is true. This is true. I probably need to stop being so much of a protective dad and shielding her from the real world, but it's hard. So
It's always going to be, but like you don't need to shield her from the fantasy world of environmentalist werewolf monsters.
no, this is true. Uh, Panda put in a good uh, description of something. I've completely lost it. Where's it gone, Panda? Where's your thing? Completely lost. I've completely lost it. Oh my god. I've gone all the way back to the beginning of chat. Oh, right. If you like incentivizing descriptive roleplay, Exalted is a good system. I've only played second ed. You play demigod level players, but that just lets you do big, interesting things like parrying cannonballs with a 6-foot sword. That sounds interesting. There's another a god game, essentially, but I can't remember what it's called. Scion, I think. Have you heard of Scion?
I have heard of both of those games. I was present for a game of Exalted at the Society, which ended up initially with 13 players in it.
Oh,
The premise behind Exalted is an absolutely award-winning premise. The
yeah,
idea that you're playing these reincarnated hero gods in this largely original sort of fantasy world with a lot of Eastern flavour to it, and the onus it puts on the players around the table. It's not going to be like Jeff the wizard, Neil the ranger, Smeeta Smorkle the goblin because his player bought the supplement sort of characters. The sort of characters that should be around your table, like personality wise and goal wise, should be like Robin Hood, Merlin, Achilles, Wong Fei Hung, and Moses. Um, but I suppose, my experience of Exalted has been that you really need players that know a lot about the system, know a lot about the setting,
yeah,
to get that sort of that level of buy-in and characters that are that big. And then my second thought regarding Exalted is it's incredibly mechanically complex.
yeah,
They've taken like the action RPG element of White Wolf stuff, and they've ramped it right up, into like they've mixed like weapon speed mechanics from second edition D&D. So like you might be wielding a 9-foot sword and parrying cannonballs, but then like this person gets to act 4 times around more often than you because they've got a dagger and some other charms, and it's like it's got a high barrier to entry. At least I found. I don't know if subsequent editions have made that easier, but I always found Exalted seemed quite intimidating. Like
yeah,
people tend to either know it, you either tended to be able to speak Exalted, or like you hadn't a clue what people were talking about. And Scion, again, some really cool ideas. It's basically White Wolf Percy Jackson, um, where you are the descendant of a deity and you assume some of their powers, and it's got like tiers of how close you are to the deity, and various sort of bits and pieces, and you go from sort of perhaps a street level superhero type thing to stuff that you see in the Avengers.
yeah,
Equally, it's very mechanically complex, and I say mechanically complex. It's got plenty of complexity to it, and it's got pitfalls. If you remember how in White Wolf, say Vampire the Masquerade, for example, there was a bit of a trap where if you wanted to like be a discipline based vampire, you'd buy like 3 ranks of whatever it is, not potence because that's super simple, but like obfuscate or dominate or something like that, and then you build the character that you wanted to be, and you'd find, oh, actually some of these disciplines use different dice pools, different stat plus skill than I thought they maybe would, and actually my character who's supposed to be really good at this is hopeless at it because they don't have enough willpower, or they don't
yeah,
have enough empathy, or whatever it is. That happened quite a lot in Scion because some of the choices were a bit odd, and also it had a power level issue in that if you had a strength god in the party, if you got above sort of a certain, like I think maybe they only play tested it extensively for the lower tiers, But once you got above sort of the second or third rank of mythic thing, the things that the strength god could fight or could hurt
Yeah.
were like anything that was a challenge for the strength god was totally unharmable by the rest of the party, and anything that was a challenge for the dexterity trickster to dodge out the way of would hit all of the rest of the party all of the time. Like
Right.
your abilities and like the automatic successes you got from being, you know, Thor's son or whatever it was, got to the point where like balancing that power wise was very difficult. The classic one with Scion was that for some reason they decided the Scion of Thor was going to have two cool guns. Not one big hammer, two cool guns. The guns had names, the guns had backstories, the guns had magic powers. The Scion of Thor was like a strength and resilience god. He was not a dexterity god, which meant he wasn't great at hitting things, but when he hit them, like they went to space. And unfortunately, what that meant, by virtue of the automatic defenses and the fact that he was using a gun, which had a dice pool of damage, that once you got above Mythic level 3, it was a much better idea if you were fighting an enemy to just throw the guns at them, because like his using his strength for damage was so much more damaging, like with all the automatic successes and extra gold power stuff that he had. Like you could shoot the bullet at them and it would bounce off them and they'd laugh, or you could throw the gun through their head. Except you'd miss every time because you weren't a dex bunny. It was a system that charitably, like the DM needed to do a lot of legwork to sort of beat it into a playable shape.
Yeah.
Above certain levels.
Yeah, there's those sorts of things don't appeal to me. I don't get me wrong. I like it when you are playing a game where you are like you've got the equivalent of you've spent like 500 XP on your character, and you are powerful, because you can then say, right, we're not dealing with normal. So you're no longer dealing with the low level flunkies here or their bosses. You're dealing with like the shadow council behind all of these. Yeah, exactly, and all of these things. You're dealing with all these the Gribblies in charge now, and they are a lot more powerful. So you're going along and you're like, so for example, with Vampire, I have run 2 games for Elder Games for Vampire, where you are playing a Methuselah. So really, really ancient vampire and stuff. And I did it in this day and age, and they had woken up and they had all like level 6s and 7s and a lot of things. So they were slapping people and dismembering them. But then it was like they were going up they went into a temple and they would have a fight with someone. They'd be just like, yeah, okay, I'll just punch them, and it's just stood there. It's like not even moving, and they would then find that it was a lot more challenging for them, or they were trying to dominate someone, and the person's just sort of like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. It's like, what do you think you're doing? I'm not simple, and things like that. So, but my favourite one was, I did one, they were escaping the first city, vampires. They were escaping Enoch, literally right there. And they were running away, and it's like, they're saying, oh, I can take my strength up to level 8, I can take all of this up to level 8. And it's like, yeah, but you've only got base character XP. So it's like, okie dokie. So their highest trait was a 3. They can't do anything. They can't do anything, and there's an antediluvian stood right next to them, able to just go, well, I'll pick you up like this, and I'll move you over there and throw you a couple of 100 miles away, and stuff like that. And that was really, really nice. So I like that you got to do that in a lot of games as well. So, but
yeah, like White Wolf's really good for that in terms of like working at different power levels. It's one of the things that it shares with D&D. Like I think I get the feeling perhaps that White Wolf games were built like that, so that the powerful NPCs that the writers love could occasionally come and just like slap the player party around, and there was some joy in that. But yeah, sort of in White Wolf playing a game in which you are gods amongst men, like it's a cool way to play and a cool experience to have as a player. And some systems do that by trying to simulate all the levels of power between man and god, as it were. Some of them do that well, and some of them do that not so well. But equally, like when you're playing a game where you are effectively Superman, it's not going to, like, in some ways you don't need to stat the anyone below the level of, say, like sub Batman. Anyone sub Batman doesn't need stats.
No.
Like, the only stat they need is the amount of time it takes to put them in the hospital.
Yeah.
But you sort of make that, like, as a GM, there are ways you make that challenging. It's not, do any of them hurt you? It's, do any of them hurt the hostages before you get them? Do they set the bomb off? Can you deal with them as well as the tanker that's careening towards the preschool?
Yeah, I quite like the moral dilemmas that you can create in these sort of situations, and because I find that when players have more power, or they think they have more power, they miss the simpler plot hooks or the more simpler sort of evidence that is there. So you get a prince or someone in charge who wants the players to go off and take this gang out, but they just don't think about it. They just go and do it, and then they realise that they've actually worked against their own side by taking it. And I like that side of it. It's the whole social political side of it as well, which, considering what I do at Empire, nobody ever really thinks that I play these sorts of characters or I enjoy it. So, like, throw me into a vampire game as a Giovanni and that side of it. So all money, and it's essentially the mafia, and I'm great. I'm having the time of my life. So it is a lot of fun. So there's been a lot of talk of they're having a long conversation about. Oh, thank you for the bits, Zodor, as well. 200 bits. Thank you very much. Yeah, make it right. There's a lot of talk of the Star Trek tabletop game.
I played in, is it a West End game, Star Trek game? One of my mates in uni was a massive Trekkie.
Yeah.
I loved it in all its forms. I think, not sure if it was a West End game or Star Trek game. I might be getting confused. I played also quite a lot of the West End game Star Wars stuff.
One of your friends was a massive Trekkie?
Quite a lot of my friends were massive Trekkies. One of them was like died in the war, like cut him in half, and you'd go to jail, but you'd also see he had Star Trek written on his pancreas.
Right.
Sort of business. So I think I played in some. Was it GURPS derived?
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, I played in a one shot or two of that. I've got this weird idea that we met Smurfs, but it was years ago.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I started looking at tabletop games and things like that, I was very set in my ways of I know this game, I like this game, I'm just going to stick with that. But then I saw there was an advert that got put out for the Aliens tabletop game. I saw a guy called Oz put it out. And I saw him run a game of it, and it looked great. Looked like a lot of fun, and that was brilliant. And I've bought a couple of the extra books as well, and it is a wonderful game to play. It is broken if you're not an alien, basically, as it should be. They get older, you're just dead, and that's it. And it's wonderful. But there are so many more games out there that I was actually shocked. Because I've never really looked into it, because obviously as a LARPer I'm very much just focused on, like, I'm going LARPing, all of my money goes on LARP, and that's it for me. And then tabletop, yeah I'll play Vampire, Werewolf, a bit of Aliens and stuff, and then you see all of these other things. I made the mistake about a week ago. I went on to the Tabletop Roleplay channel on Twitch, and there were over 700 channels of people streaming at that same time. I'd say 90% of them was D&D, and I found a group of D&D players who I can't remember their names now, but they're all four lads from Hull, and they were so funny. They were all brand new to the game, really. They didn't know a great deal, but it was just very, very funny, and they were obviously really enjoying what they were doing. So it's like, when you can tell if someone's enjoying it, because they're really passionate. You can see the enjoyment. Whereas if someone's just going through the motions, it's really obvious as well. So, but they were loving it, and I couldn't turn off. I was literally just watching it. It was great to watch, and they gave me some ideas for because I'm meant to be start running 2 D&D campaigns. I can't take things like that too seriously, and so I made one about Donald Trump building a wall, and I created a religion that's essentially it's essentially Scientology. So that is the sort of level I have my games running at, unfortunately. But they seem to be quite fun. So they start off quite silly, but then you hit the serious underbelly of it, and that's when it all sort of many Bothans died to bring us this campaign. Yes, so it is a lot of fun. Right, there's the clip of the night right there. Okay, thank you, Bolam. I appreciate it, my friend. But when we started this chat, there was a question that I really wanted to ask you, and I've completely forgotten it. I should have written it down. I'm not prepared.
That's quite right. I mean, I could ask you a question.
Go for it.
So, of all the GMs I know, there's always a game that got away, an idea that they didn't get to run or that they dreamed to run one day, but the stars aren't quite right yet. What is that for you?
So with regards to like vampire and werewolf, they've all got they basically White Wolf ended the game. So you had the apocalypse, you had Gehenna, you had the Ascension, you had all of these things happen, and there's one end time for both games, for vampire and werewolf, that cross, and I really want to run that. So it would be 2 groups. So I'd have one session of vampires, one session of werewolves, and it would get to the point where I'd have to say to all the players, right, next week we're doing it at this time now, and I need all of you to be there. So all the players then meet as their respective characters, and it's a very, very long campaign. But it would be something I'd be really, really interested in doing, because funny enough, Bolam asked a question: have we run any mega games? So go for it, take it away.
Games of mine have ended up accidentally big.
Yeah.
I ran a campaign of All Flesh Must Be Eaten in a weird, it's a relatively straight zombie apocalypse, but the zombies were an alien terraforming tool.
Nice.
So it had quite a big subscription to start off with, because people flipping love zombies.
Yeah.
So that started off with about like 8 people in it at the society, and then someone else's game finished. I don't know whether they ran out of steam or spoons, or like just their idea like finished much sooner than they thought it was going to, as some role-playing premises do. And so another group came, and there wasn't, at the time there weren't any other gyms ready to pick up. So for like 3 or 4 sessions of that game had 14 players in it, which, like, it would be totally unmanageable as something like D&D, where you're doing lots of combat, and it's, what do you do this turn, what do you do this turn, what do you do this turn, in this very egalitarian breakdown of time. With 14 people, like, you'd spend all session on half a combat. But with modern games set in a zombie apocalypse, where a lot of the questions were what do we do about this terrible problem that we're facing? Like, the staple of the genre is tense, tired people with varying degrees of trauma, addiction, and mental illness sitting around in cramped little rooms talking about what they're going to do. So the game lent itself very readily to that. So we did 3 or 4 sections of that, and then they schismed into 2 different groups. Sort of half the group went, we'll make our own settlement with blackjack and negotiable virtue. And had a car chase away, chased by what was basically a tank from Left 4 Dead, which I used little toy cars I got from the charity shop, which actually like ran a very lively and exciting session. Nice. Yeah, then they split off, and one went to a hospital, and one went to try and found their own civilization, and went on into a second season.
Mm.
Yeah, so there have been some big games.
Yeah, I did one for World of Darkness, and it was just a one-off, and that was Vampire, Werewolf, and Mage, and that had 12 players in it, and that was insane. And I thought, I'm never doing this again.
Wad Soup, the pissing contest.
Yeah, that was it, and it wasn't fun at all, but it kind of devolved because me and a few of the other players got progressively more drunk as the evening went on. So I was very much, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this game, and it didn't carry on, funnily enough. But I always find that you start games and then it just takes like one or two players to miss a couple of weeks, and then the game just sort of peters out, really. And I think that's the sad thing. I would love to find a game. To be honest, I would love to actually play in a tabletop game, because I haven't played in one for a very, very long time, and it would be really nice just to sit down and play in one. Cause I think it would have been the Call of Cthulhu game. That would have been the last game that I played in, and that. So nothing ever goes wrong when another player gets drunk and you have to sober them up. No, well, I was over at Kit's place, and we were all quite young, late 20s, and no one cared. No one cared. We just went to the pub. Have you checked out the new Vampire the Masquerade? Yes, I have the books, and I do enjoy it. It's literally the continuation of the old Vampire the Masquerade. So, Kane's gone, everybody has gone, and it's all now, well, say they're all gone, they're all in Israel, essentially, and they're all very much the younger upstarts are trying to carry on with vampire society. It's interesting. It's a very good concept, but a lot of the clans have gone, and they've really simplified it all, and I do like it. We managed a game of Watch the Skies with our society. The aliens were even peaceful, it turned out. Unfortunately for world peace, I had the American military. All the red buttons in the world. Hello, Biscuit. How you doing, buddy? Can usually be done. Oh, right. So talk about driving. Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll be able to help in some way. If you want to get there, I mean, I'm sure someone will have a spare tent for you to borrow if you wanted to just fly. We could sort some kit out. We could sort something out for you, I'm sure. Yeah. So, what about you then? What's your game? What's your one thing that you've missed out, that the stars have not aligned for you yet?
So many ideas. I guess I'll talk about one World of Darkness one, and one like I've got no idea what system I'd use to run it. But the World of Darkness one would be a Sabbat game
Nice.
before the final nights, but not like the Sabbat.
Yeah.
It would be, and it wouldn't be a crusading Sabbat game. I'd have 3 or 4 players that knew the setting, knew the system, and they would be infiltrated amongst refugees from a city that had fallen to the Sabbat, and they'd go somewhere else, like maybe not London, because London's full of elders, but somewhere in America, somewhere like maybe New York or Denver or Los Angeles, amongst the anarchs, maybe.
Yeah.
And the idea would be these Sabbat infiltrators were there to sow the seeds for the crusade, to set the anarchs against the Camarilla, to tempt some of these Camarilla children that have just been made to be pawns in a game, to give them a taste of the freedom that tastes quite a lot like the Voldery. And sort of that, like the subtle Sabbat, the Sabbat that has to hide. Like, cause, one of the things with the Sabbat is like, we're the Sabbat, we don't have to hide. I turn into an awful beast and decapitate humans on CNN. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I mean, it breaks from the essential. covenants of the system where vampires have to hide what they are, which can be cathartic and cool, but equally it can be it can encourage you to play fishmarks
Yeah.
and people without depth. Whereas Sabat that obey the masquerade because they're hiding from the cam, and equally, they're trying to recruit whilst also hiding. Like, I think there could be some really cool interplay there, some really cool sort of politics and seething stuff.
Yeah, it's you got Cardinal Moncada, or Luis Moncada he lives in where's he, Madrid.
Barcelona. Oh yes, Madrid.
Madrid, yeah.
Under the Sagrada Familia.
Yes, yeah, he lives there with his abyssal creature that he made, and he's very much of the all of his like minions that he sends out. Is very much the masquerade is there for a reason, and yeah, you stick to that, or I will just end you, and that's the way he does everything. And it's you don't fuck with his position, you don't fuck with him, you don't sort of like, he's got this line and you follow it, and if you go either side of it, you're gone, basically, unless you're Lucita, of course, because she can get away with everything.
She's the favourite.
She is the favourite. Yeah, I was meant to be doing a vampire LARP. So essentially it was the Convention of Thorns, but it was the Convention of Thorns take 2. So it was all the people who weren't at the Convention of Thorns essentially were meant to be at this place, and I was meant to be going along to it, but no, it turned out that some of the people who were there I have got less than no respect for, and their behaviour, especially at LARPs in America. So, yeah. So there was a bit of that there, and it wasn't great, unfortunately. But there are a lot of these huge parlour LARPs out there for it, especially, and they were great. But this one was they were going to be they had the character, and you put down reasons why you wanted to play this character, so you'd be cast as that character. So I went for Luis Moncada, and I thought that would have been great fun, and because one of my favourite characters, and they said no, and then they gave it to someone who, firstly, I don't think he should be allowed to interact with women, yeah, unfortunately, and that was it. So they gave me a Zamitzi psychopath instead. It's like, great. This is boring. I wouldn't want to do it anyway. But it's all very. I like those sorts of things, especially because there are a lot of tabletop games out there that do transfer over to LARP quite successfully as well. So Vampire, obviously, one of them as well. So, but you see, because I mean, it's not a massive jump, is it? Let's be honest, from tabletop to LARP. So, I mean, go on.
In a lot of ways, it's certainly not a massive jump, and for things like certainly from Vampire to a parlour LARP, like if you dress up for your Vampire tabletop, you're pretty much parlour LARPing, except that you've got dice instead of rock, paper, and scissors when the brouhaha gets tasty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've got a GM that's managing your. I said GM, sorry. I said GM in connection with White Wolf. You've got a storyteller that's managing your fun in a way that you perhaps don't at a LARP.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I quite liked. I don't think I would ever consider dressing up if I'm sat down to play a tabletop game. It's just like, no, not for me. But others want to do it. It's up to them. That's fine.
It's worth trying, even if it's like for a one shot or something daft.
Yeah.
But it can be. Yeah, I'd like. In my gradual, I can't say gradual transition to LARPing, but when I was only LARPing at Empire and not doing other systems, I played in a homebrew world run by one of my friends using the hero system, which encourages you to take an absolute shed load of flaws, like flaws left, right, and centre, So my witch hunter character ended up with one eye and one hand. So I spent every session with it was a story. He was pointing a pistol at a witch, and she like superheated it, so it blew up, and it maimed his hand, and he lost an eye. And he strangled her with the other hand. She was quite a serious man. But so I spent quite a lot of those sessions with like a rope, like a neckerchief tied around my head, so I couldn't see out of one hand, and like a big leather gauntlet on one hand because he had sort of like a prosthetic, and it was this weird Elizabethan thing. But like, it helped be in touch with the character, and occasionally I could do characterization things like knock over some food that was on the table, as part of the physical mime, and also because I wanted to eat the food. But like, that was like coming out of that character was then like, oh, I take this thing off, and like my hand's a bit sweaty, and everything looks a bit weird out of the eye that I've been covering the whole time. But it was like there was a cool way of staying in character.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, like the vampire LARP is very. Well, I suppose it is just that because you go off to do a LARP and all you're doing is sat around at tables talking to people anyway.
In a trench coat.
So no, I was in a suit. Thank you very much. I'm a Giovanni. I was very smartly dressed, so I wore a suit, and there were a couple of Brouillard or Gangrel in trench coats, and that, or in full like camo military gear and stuff like that as well. So, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, that was great fun. So yeah, I can see the appeal, and I can see why a lot of people do it. And that, I suppose I should be less jaded in my old age when it comes to it. So
yeah, it's got to be right for the character. In the vast majority of the games, I'm not dressing up in a wizard hat.
Yeah, it's like where I used to work. They did it's a complete tangent, but they did a fancy dress day for charity for Halloween, and people, it was so bad. It was so bad. People turned up. Oh, thank you. 200 bits. Thank you, Zoda. People turned up with just like a couple of wings on or a witch's hat on and stuff like that. I had a massive bag with me, and I turned up and I was sitting there like, you're not wearing a fancy dress. And I was like, no, I need to go into the bathroom to put mine on. And I came out wearing full plate. I had all my LARP stuff on, all the weapons on and stuff like that. And they were looking at me going, Steve, we think you've taken it too far. Can you take the armour off? Like, no. How dare you? How dare you, sir? And then you get in security wander up going, so you've got a mace with you and a knife. They shouldn't be allowed on site. It's like, no, they're toys. They're squishy. And they're like, oh, okay. We don't know how we feel about you having them on site. Oh, I don't care. But yeah, it was weird. But it was great. It was so good. That was how I recruited a friend of mine to come along to Empire because of it as well. So my Tremere was a clan elder and sheriff in our LARP, and he died a bit like Mac's death. I died when there's a lot of when it was also a game and a new staff, off game and a new staff went, oh, yeah, that sucks. That really, really does suck. I'm sorry it happened that way. Hey, Mochi, how are you doing? Yeah, what's the weirdest tabletop game that you've seen out there? Well, system, I should say.
There are so many weird systems out there. I could probably be one of the pamphlet games. There's a game that I haven't seen it per se, but I've heard of it, and I think the game's just called "Oh fuck, it's Dracula."
I'm googling that.
And I think there's another one, is it Honey Heist, where you've got two stats, like bear and crime.
Oh, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, there are some properly odd like pamphlet games that explore one sort of little bizarre, unique idea. I mean, in terms of
Oh no.
role-playing games where I sort of wonder, like, how did this ever get published? Why did anyone ever write this? Like, this was made back in the day before you could self-publish online extensively. But the game to bash on back in the day when I was at uni was Wraithu, which was it's spelt in some obnoxiously Japanese. Yeah, there we go. Fuck, it's Dracula, the role playing game.
Yeah. Oh man. No.
Yeah, you sort of you like it's an evocative title and it gives you an idea of perhaps what the gameplay will consist of. But yeah, I mean, in terms of thinking about it, I said I was going to tell you about 2 games that got away, and I only got to talk about one of them.
This is true. Carry on. Go
So
for
the
it.
other game that got away, I have no idea in what system I'd run it.
Yeah.
It's set after the War of the Worlds, and after the death of Queen Victoria, and it's sort of a relatively pastiche steampunk sort of tone, but the incoming king to manage the threat that the Martians now pose to his empire sets about an extraordinary commission, Victorian XCOM, with the creatures being sort of the Selenites from First Man in the Moon, and the Tharks from the Barsoom Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. So all these planetary romances, the stuff that sort of got put away after sci-fi got hard in the 1930s and 40s, and got very scientific. The sort of things we put away once we got big enough telescopes and the rockets actually started flying. But yeah, so there's so much you could do with that rather than the Greys and the Reptilians and the Thin Men of the original XCOM. There's all this other stuff you can bring out, and you can show the players historical figures, and you're making choices regarding that. Do they hire Edison, who's great at getting things done, but is an arsehole and won't make weapons, or do you hire Tesla, who's got no problem in making a death ray, but actually translating what he wants, his ideas into practical things is quite a lot harder.
Yeah.
You can trot out like the bits of that part of history that people want to get to grips with, and you can, it's an era of mysticism, and so there's an in there to introduce psychic powers and all that sort of stuff, and you could a very wide-ranging campaign. You can take them to the pyramids. You can do all sorts. You can take them into the jungles of South America and sort of all sorts of it's got such scope to it. It's my only reservation with it would be like the sensitivity with which you'd have to handle the era, because it's so like racist and sexist and homophobic. Bits and pieces. So you need to play it with players that you can trust, and like you'd need to have an approach that your players were comfortable with in the level of things that were going on. And I'd obviously want to run it, and then being plucky underdogs, be as femme, be as queer, be as trans as you want. Live your truth. And we'll have a world that works around that, and as much as the prejudice of the historical era, well, you're running a steampunk game. Maybe they don't care.
No.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they've got more important things. Like they're worried about the Martians now. The fact that that you were born under the British Raj is less important to the fact that you don't have a tentacle growing out of the top of your head, and that sort of stuff. That's the white whale somewhere off in distant sea.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, apart from the vampire werewolf crossover, I don't think I actually have a proper like idea that I've written down or anything and thought that could be something that would be great fun to play through. And I mean, I've played in one campaign. This was many moons ago, and it finished with us like winning essentially, and then we woke up because it was all a dream. Yeah, it took me a while to speak to him again. I could not forgive that. It was a terrible end to a long campaign.
And did doing that let him go, or let the GM sort of go like, and there were hints of this all throughout. Did you ever wonder why X did Y? Did you ever wonder why this happened?
No, it turned out it was because we had killed the big bad a long time before they wanted us to. we had one shot to do this. We knew that they were there, and we had picked up. He hadn't out and out said that they were the big bad, but we knew that they were becoming that way, and we just went, found them, killed them, and it was just like, okay. So it was all a dream. Like, you can get fucked. We're not doing that.
There's a million ways you can bring a character back from the dead. In
Exactly.
Any like, be it fantasy, be it horror, be it science fiction. You know, it's a clone. It's a there's a million things you could do that are more dramatically satisfying than that.
Yeah, I mean, have them fall into a warehouse where there's like 50 tubes full of people, and it's all this one person, and one of them is in a countdown at the moment because they're about to come out again because you've killed that one, so they're just rolling out the next one. Something like that. That would have been much better. I would have loved that.
You could even work in into the clone fatigue. You know, at the start of the things, the person's really motivated and sharp, and then by like the 15th or 16th time you've killed them over the course of the campaign, they're like, I am a copy of a copy of a copy. I barely remember who I am anymore. All I've got left is this purpose to destroy the crystal of Xandor and end this pitiful existence, to break the wheel of resurrection. Bleh! I'm just coming back. Let me monologue, you prick.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, there's so many things to do out there. I think that's one of my favourite things about GMing, though, is that you sat there and you're thinking, right, because I've played a campaign where they found the big bad after like 2-3 sessions, and they killed them. They came up with an imaginative way, and they did it. And I'm thinking, right, okay. Well, the natural progression is then number 2 just takes over. So that's what I did, and the system fell apart a bit, but the game carried on, albeit not the same way. So it wasn't that clinical military precision this time. It was all a bit shitter because the person who was there second in charge wasn't as good as the person running the show and didn't have the control. So things went off on their own, and that was a lot of fun.
Yes, it's an opportunity to say, how does this player action affect the course of the world? One of the best sort of one campaign into another that I ever ran was based on the development material for Fallout 3 before Fallout 3 was ever a thing. It was the old Black Isle stuff before Bethesda bought it.
Yeah.
But they TPK'd at the end of the first campaign. They'd been released from a dome and they had to go and find a part because all the other cryo things back at the original dome were failing, and the thousands of frozen colonists there were all going to die. So they went and they did a load of stuff, and they went to each community across the wastes, and they did some quests, and they helped some factions, and they stamped on some factions, and they unleashed an AI that was had a little tribe of people with them, and they went and they intervened in the Mormon Civil War, and they spoke to the Brotherhood of Steel and all sorts of other stuff. And then they TPK'd because they got involved in the wrong side of the Mormon Civil War, and then they sort of split up because one of them was terrible, one of them was easily led, and the two, one of them knew that they'd fallen pregnant and wasn't willing to die for the cause, and the one valiant person got shot to death by a lot of very angry men. So then after the TPK, I went, all right, I'll run another season of this. 6 months later, they thaw out another 5 people and they stick them in another car and they go, find out what happened to that lot. And so they went from settlement to settlement, seeing the 6 months later impact of all the stuff that they'd done. Like
that's really cool.
Like the AI had taught the tribal people how to make gunpowder, so they were busy like dominating the ever living flip out of all the other tribes.
Yeah.
And like some groups had flourished and some groups had withered, and it was all about consequences and changing the world.
That's
fantastic. It was super cool.
Yeah. Zodro said Ars Magica 3rd edition is very good. Don't know that one.
I know some people who swear by Ars Magica. I think it's some sort of... It's not quite a splinter or a split off of the idea behind Mage, I think. It's like it's a bit like sort of the oeuvre of Mage, but in a fantasy world, I think.
I'll have to have a
I
look
love
up.
the ideas of Mage, but like I'd have quite a lot of trouble playing a game where the name of it is Ars Magica. Like I'd have a little chuckle every time I looked at the book. Like you'd have to have a 5-minute giggle at the start of each session. It's like, all right, we're about to play the Magic Bombs game. Everyone just chuckle it out.
The Magic Bums game. That's brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Ars Magica. Yeah. I can see that. Hi, Circuit. How you doing? Yeah, nothing worse than an unsatisfying end. But you can also get a really unsatisfying beginning as well, especially as a GM. So I will never forget. It's one of my favourite games I've ever run, and it was over in 20 minutes. Literally 20 minutes. They had their characters, and the game started. They were both, funnily enough, they were both playing Tremere. They were in a chantry, and they were doing whatever the hell they were doing. And see you later, Beth. Thank you for the bits. And they had and they were just sat there. They're doing this thing, and then this guy appeared in a mirror, in this mirror, and then just came out of it, and everyone ran apart from them because they went, oh, I'll do like a little fireball, and I'll try to pull some, get his blood boiling and stuff like that. So they did that, and he just went, yeah, and then killed everybody in the room, including the players. And then he walked back into the mirror and was gone. And they're like, oh, we're dead. It's like, yeah, you were meant to run, but you didn't. Oh, well, I'm going to go to the pub. And that was literally it. So, but that was literally 20 minutes. TPK immediately. So, I've had a cool hood that I'm thinking of buying. If I can buy a leather sewing machine, I'll make it. Nice, very cool. I made the mistake of trying to actually sew through fur. Oh my god, it killed my fingers. It really does. But yeah, that was a fun one. There's a lot of talk online at the moment that I've been seeing of people talking about safety systems and things like that. Is that something you put into your games, or do you trust your players? You trust your players not to be dickheads, basically.
So I've been playing with the same group for probably about 10 years now since we left uni. I've got a fairly regular tabletop group, and I'm in another game with another set of friends in which I play.
Yeah.
I DM for them, and I've run Pathfinder 4th to 20th with them, and then 4 years of a homebrew superhero game, and then 3 and a bit years of a homebrew Space Pirates game. I think we know each other. We know each other's styles. Some people have drifted, have come into and then drifted away from the group as what we wanted to play, and scheduling got in the way. So I think by virtue of playing extensively with people I trust, like 2 of them I lived with, sort of things, and people who I've played in loads and loads of games with in the past, and people of a similar level of, I think we've effectively self-selected in some ways for maturity and tolerance towards themes. We have, I guess in terms of safety systems, when I've proposed to run games for other folk, I've got a vampire hunting D&D game on the boil, but we basically did what one player described as kink traffic lights. I used to say, I went spiders, red light, eye injury, red light, and sort of talked through if I don't propose to write any sexual themes in, any references to violence of that kind, of coercion of that kind. If that are people around the table all right with if in the interplay of your role playing between characters relationships form, are people all right with that? And everyone was like, yeah, green light. And say, if those are romantic relationships, yeah, green light, maybe yellow light. And it's like, okay, so that makes me feel like anything beyond a basic romantic affection is going to be and fade to black or go off screen and that sort of stuff. And they went, yeah, that's the level we're comfortable with. So it's about you're doing that sort of questionnaire and putting that in place, managing people's expectations of where things are go, and also asking them their questions. like I don't shy away from. I quite enjoy the impact of like graphic injury description.
Mm.
Like I don't mind a bit of a gruesome horror movie sort of thing.
No.
It's got its time and place. Not everything is blood and guts and people
No.
being flayed left, right, and centre and Cenobites as NPCs. But equally, I don't mind sort of making a bit of a horrible noise after they've described like slashing someone's throat with their counter riposte.
Mm.
And it was in talking to the players about that and other bits and pieces. It came up with one of the players saying like, "I'm okay with pretty much any description of injury other than injuries to eyes. Any sort of injury to eyes just squick me out." It's like, that's good to know. It's sort of being able to work with your players to understand what they're in the game for and other such bits and pieces. Like in the Space Pirates game, it's got some quite nihilistic themes.
Yeah.
And it's got digitized consciousness in it and all sorts of bits and pieces. But like one of the players is like, I have this visceral horror of the idea of like killing someone and disassembling them for their parts because those are valuable. So, because it's a homebrew system, it's just written into it. It's like cybernetics aren't worth anything once you put them into a person. Like you can't take them back out and stick them into someone else.
Yeah.
It's just not worth doing. So it entirely sidesteps the issue of like, we have to shoot that guy in the back because his bionic arm's worth tens of thousands of credits. We can't spare this person, sort of thing. So, yeah, safety systems go. I guess it would be like pre-flight checks and questionnaires about introducing new elements, and ultimately, sort of, can't say be careful who you play with, but sort of, I mean, obviously be careful who you play with, and
Yeah.
one of the joys of playing at a university society was there's like 30 people in the society and you eventually end up playing with all of them, and you learn what bad behavior looks like, and you see what ignoring bad behavior does to games, and the games are only 8 like sessions long. So if someone's game is really like ruined by someone, you only run 8 sessions worth, or you only lose 8 sessions worth of work. But you get an idea of what you like and don't like in players and companions at the tabletop, and like what you do and don't like in GMs, the traits and other bits and pieces, how to spot them and all those sort of other bits and pieces. You say bits and pieces a lot, but you get that experience that someone who comes up from the ranks and like all gets, them and their mates all get into a system all at the same time and all get into playing it, and you don't really play with anyone else for 3 or 4 years at the start of your career, and then later on you find that like, oh, actually no, there are some GMs that are like, yeah, no phones at the table, and like, oh wow, this makes the gameplay experience much better. Or there are some GMs with like I don't mind if you drink, like if you have a bottle with you, but like please no more than 1 or 2 drinks in the course of the gameplay, because it has an impact. And you go, oh wow, it actually does have an impact. Like I'm enjoying this quite a lot more.
Yeah.
Or equally, you may find like actually, I'd rather bang down the mead in the course of gameplay, and that it's more it's more the social aspect to it, and that the games that you want are the ones that allow that level of disengagement, and that so you sort of think, oh well actually I like role playing, but I also like seeing my friends, and I'm only seeing my friends when I role play, and that's maybe why the sessions are so distracted.
Yeah.
Let's make some sort of group date where we see each other twice a month, and that way we won't be all like jonesing for social when the time comes to sit and play.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. It's, I like, my security, my like safety things at my table. It's literally, when it comes to the narrative, you're talking about something that happens. If someone says no, it's a split. Mod, do your thing. It takes it's just a split second to say, okay, it doesn't happen like that. It happens like this, and that's it. And then you think, okay, that is something that we shouldn't be doing because someone's uncomfortable, and then it just changes. So I quite like doing, I quite like doing that. My mods aren't doing their thing.
Curse them to 1,000 deaths.
Yeah. What? Come on.
Yeah,
right, I'm gonna have to do it. Am I doing it then?
I can provide some audio cover whilst you're doing it, but it's sort of the the engagement with the world and the engagement with the experience as a story. Sort of a lot of time can be spent in certain kinds of games, particularly like sandboxy games, with the players trying to hedge against risk or hedge against consequence. You know,
Yeah.
if we get a castle, all right, so a big chunk of the next session is about like interviewing the people you've got at the castle so that we don't have a traitor in the castle. And it's effectively, as a GM, you could say, or the message perhaps that I'd be inclined to put out would be, the only thing that you can do to guarantee that I will not run a traitor plot related to this castle is say to me, Tom, I don't want you to run a traitor plot in relation to this castle. Like, I want this to be a nice thing, and a traitor plot doesn't interest me. I'll go, yeah, fine, that's brilliant. Like, I'll threaten it with a dragon. There'll be a famine or a drought, or there'll be there'll be some interpersonal love drama between the NPCs that you care about. But like, if traitor plot doesn't interest you, just let me know. We are telling a story together.
Yeah.
And it would be great if I don't have to pretend to be a succession of bakers that you interview and cast Detect Evil on.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the whole you are all working together, and you've got all of you have got all of that. But I think it's an element of trust that goes both ways as well, isn't it? So I trust my players not to put us into a situation where I have to turn around and say, look, I'm not comfortable with running that story as well, because it has happened, and I have had a game just stop. It's like, look, you might be comfortable doing that, but I'm not. So it's like, I don't think I want to run a game for you anymore, to be honest, and that's the way it goes, unfortunately. But it's just a thing. But it's nice that that these sort of things are taken seriously as well, and regardless of how you do it, because I know a lot of people who will do it before the game, and they'll have questionnaires, they'll have things like that there and stuff like that. But it's like I will ask the question, is like, is there anything big that you just don't want? And they'll go, yeah, none of this or this. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then I will apologise and just say, my memory is terrible. I have made a note of it here, but if I ever forget, just please just say, we'll just drop out, we'll say, and then we'll carry on. Because it's always communication. That's when things go bad, when communication stops. So, but here we are, and it's a really nice, positive thing. And I need to run more games. I love tabletop games. I really do. And I hope because I've been going for an hour and a half. We've been going for an hour and a half now, so it's like I'm gonna bring this to a thing. Actually, something I would quite like to do is I'm going to do a deep dive into some really weird tabletop games. And if you're okay with coming back on, I'm gonna have a nice long list prepared. I'll have a nice long list prepared of all of these really weird ones that I've found in the world. So, because tabletop games have been going back to like the 70s and 80s, so a really long time. And I think it would be quite interesting and quite fun to have a look at some of the really weird ones that are out there. And there will be controversial ones and stuff like that, but yeah, you point at them and laugh. Give them the derision they deserve.
Fatal.
Sorry?
Everyone remembers Fatal.
So
it's basically like a tabletop RPG book club.
Yeah, it could be quite. I think that could be a lot of fun. When I DM, it's very fluid storytelling. That's more sandbox inspired. See, a friend of mine, Justin, runs a werewolf game that is a sandbox, and he was going to run it on stream, but it's just sort of like tabletops do. They get talked about, they get planned, and then they just don't happen. So hopefully one day I could get him on.
Comes along. If it's werewolf, it's technically a litter box.
The litter box came along, yes. Yeah, you run a litter box game. My God.
I had to get something out.
You did,
the conversation moved quickly when you were talking earlier about the guy from southern Sweden. I nearly got to say, you mean Denmark? which the Swedes would go absolutely bonkers about, and I don't think the Danes would be pleased either.
No, they won't be.
If we're winding down, can I impart some of my teachings before we go?
Go for it.
So, to you out there, to you, I'm talking to you. Write crumple zones into your game, and by that I mean railroading the players into success is as bad as railroading them into failure. So have ways that your encounters can fail without ruining your story or TPKing. And in fantasy systems, like have an idea of who might rescue them if they TPK, who raises them 10 years later, what the world looks like. Whether that's good people or whether that's like, you're all in hell together and you got offered a bargain. Or maybe the campaign can, a couple of levels is you fighting your way out of hell having been conscripted into the Bloodborne. I don't know. Maybe you escape through a magic mirror and kill 2 gormless-looking vampires. Who knows? But like, plan some stuff. Like if the bandits beat them, the bandits ransom them. They affect their goals. It's one of the reasons why you give them NPCs that they love, so that you can kill them when they fail things.
Yeah.
Plan your crumple zones. Also applies to writing LARPs. Very much applies to writing LARPs. Because if you TPK a tabletop roleplay, then everyone goes to the pub. If you TPK your LARP, like you have to hide in a hole in a cave on Mars for 20 years before anyone else will talk to you ever again. Yeah, crumple zones. Crumple zones are the way forwards.
That's really cool.
Games and encounters that can fail forward.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. Nothing I've really ever thought. I mean, I know about the saving your entire party at the last second, but then fighting just a random person, but the big bad knows they're there, and it's like, I've now saved your life, you now owe me. All of this sort of stuff.
Yes, there's got to be consequences.
Yeah.
Like in the same way as you wouldn't steal their victory from them, like don't steal their defeat from them either. If they've made some noble sacrifices, then honor those, but also like ruin some of the things that they love as a consequence for them not rolling the clicky clacky math rocks right.
Yeah, and it's like, I think the one that I have done was where I essentially the building was on fire. All of them had no health left, so they should all have died. So you give them like, this is the one final throw of the dice. This is the life-saving throw, if you will. And if they got higher than the certain amount, they were out a window. They went through a door. Part of the wall fell away. The floor fell away, and they ended up in a cellar where there's no fire. Something like that had happened. And if they failed, they're gone. You're dead. And it was quite fun. So having a party of 5 and you suddenly lose 3 characters to a house fire, but the other 2 are alive, just about, and they're out in the middle of the road with all of these people coming out and sort of like, we've got to help you and stuff, and then they've got to try to talk their way out of not going to the hospital. No, I'm not dead. Oh, what's this? Oh, it didn't come up with the sound.
The Bolum donated £5.
There you go.
Makeover. Thanks for the stream, chaps. Also, I am reminded to send NK character ideas to Tom.
Oh, there you go. Bolan's been reminded to send you character ideas.
Yes, do it.
Yes.
I've nearly finished the downtime. I'm going to start writing the whole event now. I've got about 30-40 encounters planned out. It's going to be an encounter bonanza. But none of them are going to relate to your backstory unless you send me some backstory.
I think you should just ignore Bolam anyway.
Just find something to make trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a middle child that way.
Yeah, I need to come to Northern Kingdom, so I need to put time aside and come to that. I have to. I live in northern Sweden. Everything south of Uppsala in Denmark. Everything south of Uppsala is Denmark, in my opinion. Yes, yeah. Oh, we get the similar thing over here, so I'm from Portsmouth. Anything north of Portsdown Hill is north. Different country. But still. So, I'm going to call it there. Tom, thank you so much for coming on. I had no idea how this stream would go. Wow.
You're very welcome.
As I'm not going back to Empire, here's some money for the makeover.
What's happening? Am I being showered with confetti?
Yeah,
Is
Jim.
it for me?
I'm not coming back to Empire. Here's some money for the mate. Thank
Here
you
are the
so much
last
for the
bits.
bits. Why aren't you coming back to Empire? That's sad. And here are the last bits. Thank you very much, Soda. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, everyone who's donated bits. Oh, Jim, that's sad news. And Helen. Oh,
Sploosh.
sploosh. We got a hype train now as well. Yeah. So I'm still going to end it because it's going on quite late. But thank you everyone for the bits. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I didn't know how this stream would go because tabletop games. This is something I've never talked about on stream, so it's the first time for that, and very grateful you volunteered. So it's been a lot of fun and given me the idea for that whole other stream to run. So yeah, need to run more tabletop games on stream as well because I think they're a lot of fun to do as well. So, but yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I don't know is anyone streaming? Is Dolly streaming? Do we know if Dolly's streaming? Dolly is streaming. Oh, so is Digby. Who did I raid last? Do you remember? Dolly or Digby? Someone make a decision. Someone pick.
It was the helicopter man last time.
So is Dolly. Okay, so we'll go raid Digby. Oh, yeah. So we'll go raid Digby this time round. Okie dokie. Well, everyone, go and give him some love. Thank you so much for coming on, Tom. And we'll do it. Oh, Dawn, you got in there a bit late. Next time, Dawn, just remind me, and I will raid Mini Arcana for you. Yeah, so go and give him some love. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Bye, bye.